Welcome to the program One-on-One on Africa Uncensored. And today we are discussing the Wagala massacre, which happened in the northeastern region of Kenya 33 years ago. I'm joined by Salah Abdi Sheikh, the author of the book, The Blood on the Runway, the Wagala massacre of 1984. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Tell me, where were you at that time?
In 1984, I was a young boy looking after goats in the bushes of Wajir County, which was Wajir district then. I was 6 years old, as I said. Most of what happened, I did not actually see it myself. It is whatever I saw was the outcomes. People crying, people running away, and the trauma that followed after for so many years, 3 to 4 years. And that's where I was in 1984. Yeah, that's how it was. And what I can remember actually is there was also a drought in 1984. And because of the drought, the livestock died, and the following year, 1985, we left the nomadic lifestyle and we had to come to a village. And what I remember is that's when I was taken to school because the goats that I was herding actually died. Yeah.
How did you come about to write the book?
It was a culmination of events that happened over a period of many years. Having lived with the victims, some of them, the family I was living with, my aunt, her husband had died in the massacre. And over the years, the stories were being told to the children, and we could see how people were. At one point, you could go to the playground and you are playing with 24 other children, and probably you are the only one whose father is alive. The rest are orphans from Wagala massacre. So part of that experience is what led to the book, and it wasn't the first book. The first book was actually a play in the name with the title "In the Eyes of the Meow," and which I wrote because I wanted to participate in a playwriting competition organized by the BBC at the time, and I was young. I left school in 1996, high school, and 97 I was sort of free. You remember we used to stay 2 years out before we joined university. So I wrote the play to try and participate in that playwriting competition, but I could not get somebody to type it because typing was required, and at the time computers were very few and typewriters were also sort of it was a strange kind of life then. So I could not get somebody to type it, so I just put it in my bag and forgot about it. So that's the play I first published in 2003. And I did more research, and we discovered more information and pictures and other information that's relating to Wagala massacre. And in 2005, I started writing Blood on the Runway, and we published it in 2007 with the help of some of my friends. And we published around 2,000 copies, and now it's out for print. Actually, we are revising it. Yeah.
It's over 3 decades since the massacre happened. Where are we at the moment in terms of getting justice for the victims?
In terms of getting justice, I don't think whether we are closer than we were in 1984, because this is sort of a systemic problem. People make promises, people get say things, but the system is the problem. The system does not allow for compensation, for proper apology, for establishment of memorials, for integration of the victims into society. The system does not allow us to actually do that. So I think we are not closer. But what has happened is we have collected a lot of information. We have written books. We have documentaries were made out of this massacre. TJRC had an official report. Now we have an official record of what happened. That might be progress towards justice. But are we closer to getting justice? I have my doubts.
In 1992, the then President Moi, he promised that there would be set a fund to compensate the victims, but that never happened. What keeps you going? And do you think the victims will ever get justice?
Personally, I'm one of the most pessimistic person in terms of the victims getting justice. I don't see it in my lifetime. Probably after my lifetime. But if you remember, Moi actually wanted to establish a trust fund which will help the victims. But 1992 was year of elections. He wanted the votes. At the time, it was the first time he's facing a serious challenge, and he promises a few things. promotes a few members of that community, does a few, things that were related to trying to appease the victims, but nothing came out of it. Same thing with the time when NAC came to power. I remember one of the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Kiraitu Murungi, promising that they will do something and saying that this was even genocide, but then they did nothing. The TGRC came along, wrote a report. The report, if you read it, is very, it's a report that can be implemented. It has recommendations that will be, accepted by the victims. But you see, nothing has happened for now after 4 years. So what keeps us going is the hope that we cannot actually we cannot give up on ourselves.
We've had conflicting numbers of those who were killed. Do we have a definite number? And how did the killings happen?
It's very hard to actually determine how many people died. But what we know is the government thought it killed 57 people. We have established that 55 was the number of civil servants who were killed in the massacre. 55. So they say 57, they just added 2 to the number of their own civil servants that they killed. The number 300 and something, 427 is the number that we know, people that we know, people whose names are available, and we know the families, and we know the 3 names and all that. 1,000 is over 1,000 is the number that Annalena Tonelli actually said they killed over 1,000 people. So she was there, she was a witness, she collected the bodies. So she must be the most reliable source of evidence. So what I can say is, if 427 is the number we know, I will say that would be like 10% of the victims. So around 4,000 is the number we should be looking at. How did they happen? This thing happened over a period of 4 days. They collected everyone from all over the district, which was a very large district, very expansive, place. People even collected from the neighboring districts. Some people I know are collected from Garissa district, which is a place called Modogashe, and some people are collected from Moyale. So, and then whatever happened was people were kept in a very large airstrip for over 4 days, and they were not given food, they were not given water. And you remember, at this period of time, now we are in February now, this period of time is the hottest period in the year. The temperatures there reach around 40 degrees. Outside, maybe even 45 degrees. You could easily die, of thirst outside. So some people died of thirst. Some people were tortured to death. Some people were shot in the back when there was a stampede. The last day when everybody saw that now they will not survive this, there was a stampede, and the military, they shot at them. And they killed. Many of them were killed. They were shot at the back. And people, the deaths followed after, because people were injured, continued dying of their injuries over many years. People died of injuries that after even 10 years. So that we cannot say how many people died, because some people died on the ground there, in the airstrip. Other people were killed outside the airstrip. Other people were shot at the back when they're running away. Others died of their injuries, and nobody actually knows where they died and where they were buried, and we don't know. We don't know anything about them. So the numbers will never be resolved. But what can happen is, knowing the large number of people involved, if there is any sort of justice has to be achieved, we should not focus on the number. We should just focus on the event itself, that people were involved, that innocent people died, that people who are villagers, essentially people who live in a town, were collected and killed. And if compensation is to be given, we look at the burden of proof is on the government, it's not on the victims, because the victims are victims. The government is the one that has to prove that they didn't kill so and so, of which I don't think whether they'll be able to do that. So if there is any compensation or any justice to be achieved, we should not put the burden on the victims proving themselves that they're victims. We should put the burden on the government to prove that they didn't kill these people.
And in your view, is there willingness on the part of government to look into past injustices?
This country has a tendency to establish commissions, committees, tribunals, people who write very beautiful reports. Somebody was saying there are about 63 or so reports which have been written on different issues in this country, and none of them has ever been implemented. If you read the TGRC report, it deals with many issues. It deals with historical injustice, and it deals with the issue of land, which is a very contentious issue in this country, and which will probably cause us, if there is any civil war or any other problems that will come to this country, will come not because of anything else, not because of even historical injustices, it will come because of land. So having the report itself is beautiful. We have a record of our history. We know that we didn't live in the paradise that everybody else thinks. We live in a very, we had a very bad history. We were sort of at war. We had a low-level conflict in this country going on, which many of us thought, many of this country, people in this country don't know that was happening. But now, where do we take this report? What has happened is, like every other report, like the Nungu report, like the report on Ouko, like every other report, we shelved it and it's on the shelf and it is there, anybody can read it, but nobody is willing. Even the parliament is not willing to look at the TJRC report, because the problem is it's a mirror and everyone will be seen there.
Considering what you've said, will you continue fighting?
I think I cannot give up, because giving up, now nobody's even considering me. So if I give up, I'm just giving up and nobody knows that I gave up. So I don't want to give up because I have nothing to give up for. Whom am I giving up on? Because nobody's taking on me. People are indifferent to what we are doing. They're indifferent in all the writing we are doing, all the criticizing we are doing. They are indifferent. They have closed their ears completely to anything that concerns the history of this country. So I don't want to give up. I have the hope that if we keep fighting, if we keep the history of the country alive, if we have records of these events, at worst is we prevent such events, such kind of incidents from happening again, by having the record, by telling people that this thing happened on this date at this time, and these are the people responsible. We will prevent similar incidents from happening again.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.